I'm Dr. Erica Bove, and welcome to the Love and Science podcast. I'm your host, and also the founder of Love and Science, Thriving Through Infertility. I'm so excited you're here today. With over a decade of experience helping thousands of women just like you, I empower professional women to build their families with confidence and compassion. Let's dive in. Welcome to episode 5, How Love and Science Supports Female Physicians and Professionals Experiencing Infertility. This episode, in part, was inspired by David Letterman, who has had his top 10 list before. And I came up with 10 ways, and of course there are so many more, but 10 ways that at Love and Science, how we support female physicians and professionals that I really don't see in any other format. So the first way is that when you are a client at Love and Science, you receive personalized one-on-one support tailored to you and your unique situation by an experienced board-certified REI specialist. And that is me, Dr. Bove, right? Because that is what I do. And I recently realized that many people don't know how a person becomes a fertility specialist. And so generally the path is 4 years of college, 4 years of medical school, 4 years of an OBGYN residency program, which is very, very rigorous, and then 3 additional years of subspecialty training in reproductive endocrinology and infertility. And what this means is that basically I never skipped a step. I never took a break. I went to school straight through. And finally, at some point in my mid-30s, they let me loose to take care of actual patients unsupervised. And, now I've been doing fertility medicine for over a decade now, which is really amazing, and I adore it. And I think I'm at the point in my career, which it's crazy to say, but technically I'm mid-career at this point, where I feel like I pretty much seen it all, right? I intentionally chose to train in New York City for my residency. I was very fortunate to match at the University of Michigan, where I did my fellowship training. And, I chose it for many reasons. Both the breadth and the depth of the clinical experience there was very appealing to me because you get one shot at training and you don't want to leave training unprepared. And then you become an attending and you start taking care of thousands of patients. And I carry each person's journey with me. And part of the beauty of it is that when I see a patient or a client, I'm not just seeing them for the first time. I mean, I need to get to know them and their goals, but I'm also seeing them with the lens of the tens of thousands of patients I've seen before. And also now that I'm a coach, all the clients I've seen, the hundreds of clients I've seen as well in that role. And, it just makes me think that no single experience is isolated. And, the older I get, the wiser I get, the more knowledgeable I get. I'm so thankful to all those years and the continued practice that I get in my clinical medicine practice because it makes me a better coach. It makes me a better physician. And what it means is that the people who are seeing me are not just seeing me as a person, but they're gaining the experience of all those years of blood, sweat, tears, toil, however you want to say it. I mean, obviously it hasn't been all hard. I adore my work. I get up every day and I get to do meaningful work. But when I take that to the fertility coaching lens, I think most people who find me really are at a point in their journey where they've already tried some treatment. They've already maybe even done in vitro fertilization and it's not working. Those are the people who find me most often. And we really got to take 3 steps back and say, okay, I don't have my doctor hat on at this moment, but obviously I come with the experience of a fertility physician. I can absolutely offer my perspective, which again is not medical advice, but it's my perspective with all this experience. And how can I take the identity of the person before me, the values, the goals, the traumas, the shame, the blame, whatever it is that is influencing the present process, how can I take that? How can I take that burden from the person, use both my loving brain, my scientific brain, and really transform that into that burden being released and unlocking the potential of that person to not only feel better throughout the process, but have the highest chance of achieving their dream. And that's what I believe in. And like I said, I'm thankful to everything that I've gone through thus far, to give me the knowledge and skills to be able to be that to people And I want to be able to give in that way. It's like if you, have skill that is so helpful to people and it's not used to the fullest potential, then there are people who could be served who are not being served. So just keep that in mind. Number one is the tailored personalized support by me. And there may be a time when we have more fertility specialists on our team. That is part of my goal as we grow. But right now it's me and my small team, and we are here for all of it. Okay. So number two is that at Love and Science, we help you overcome overwhelm and reclaim your life with our compassionate guidance. I would say one of the things I hear most often is just how small life has become with this journey, and how every single step, every decision is so overwhelming and painful. And so part of what I see as my role is looking at the overwhelm, breaking it down, shining a light on those thoughts and feelings, those thoughts that are causing the overwhelm, because this is what coaching teaches us, is that anytime we have a feeling, it is preceded by a thought. And that thought is something that is not set in stone, but something that actually, if we look at it, we can change up our thoughts with quite some power. And so how can we take that feeling of overwhelm and stuckness and think about how we want to feel instead? Maybe we want to feel empowered. Maybe we want to feel like the fertility journey is just part of life and not the whole thing right now. Maybe we want to free up some mental space to be able to read a book for fun, or to go for a walk in nature, or to have, a romantic date with our partner if we have one. All those things are possible. It just takes some thought work, some mindset work, and some 1% shifts. Like I said, I'm here for all of it. And I really don't like overwhelm. I think it's a heavy, heavy burden. And I don't think it has to be a part of the fertility journey. And I'm happy to help you befriend it and release it. The third way that Love and Science supports female physicians and professionals is that I empower people to choose your next steps with confidence, knowing you have our unwavering support. So I think sometimes we get caught in these rumination loops and these decisions where it's like, do I do this or do I do that? And it can be even as minuscule as like, do I take Claritin and Pepcid or do I not? And these are adjuncts, which by the way, have really no data behind them. But sometimes I think, especially if we're physicians, also if we're educated professionals, like sometimes those even small decisions can just take over our minds. And we just get so worried that we're going to make the wrong decision that is going to lead to, a bad outcome, which is potentially, not getting pregnant or having a miscarriage, and that we are somehow going to be personally responsible. So as you all know by now, one of my 3 pillars is evidence-based. And so I am happy to share the evidence that exists. I'm happy to help you tap into your values and your priorities and really help you feel empowered to choose your next steps with confidence and clarity. Okay, so number 4, what's the 4th way that Love and Science helps female physicians and professionals experiencing infertility? We have these amazing support groups on Friday nights, and we also have a group chat as well, which is ongoing. And I firmly believe we are not meant to heal alone. We are truly meant to heal in community. I learned this as a young adult, as I went to support groups of my own. And I really started to believe in the power of groups, in the power to have our situations mirrored, to gain strength from the community and not just ourselves. Sometimes we're strong, sometimes we're weak, but it's like this collective pooling of resources and this common humanity, which we see in the self-compassion piece of things, that we just realize that we're not alone and we are actually meant to support each other through this. And what you gain by being a part of this community is you gain lifelong friends, you gain meaningful relationships, you gain a community of people who truly understands your situation. I think so many of us realize that the fertility journey is just filled with people who don't understand. And so when you realize that you're not alone, that you have people who just see you, understand you, and support you, I think that is a huge part of the value of Love and Science is the friends and the village, the tribe really, that you gain along the way. Okay, so number 5, the 5th way that Love and Science supports female physicians and professionals experiencing fertility. I love this one. We help you transform your inner critic into an inner coach. How many of us have this constant negative voice that's always telling us we're not good enough, our bodies are not good enough, we're not doing a good enough job at work, at home, in our relationships, like whatever it is, we are just plagued by this voice of like not good enough, not good enough, not good enough. And one thing I've realized through coaching is that we can actually channel that energy, that inner critic, which is actually negative and somewhat destructive, and we can actually turn it into an inner coach. So somebody who still has the motivation of us reaching our full potential, but just couched in a much more positive relationship and much more affirming, positive, supportive language, where we know from the self-compassion literature that people actually achieve even greater things when they have a coach and not a critic. Changes our brain chemistry. It's fascinating. So we use self-compassion, which is one of our other pillars. So we have the empowerment is one, self-compassion is another, and evidence-based is the third. We use this self-compassion approach to listen to the words we use when we're talking to ourselves. Words matter, right? I've said this before, that word failure, gosh, like how much better off would we be if we just eradicated that from our vocabulary? So, as your loving coach, I gently encourage you to use loving language towards yourself, to be self-compassionate towards yourself, towards your decisions, to other people. I think sometimes we have a much easier time being compassionate to other people, much more so than we do to ourselves. And that inner coach, like I'm your outer coach, right? But your inner coach will help you along throughout your day as you think about your journey, as you think about your life outside of your journey. And it just helps with how you learn to talk to yourself in general, which, as you all know by now too, my goal is not just to help you through the fertility journey, but to give you the tools you need to have a much more integrated, healthy, happy life. So yes, self-compassion, inner critic to inner coach, and we do all of that at Love and Science. Okay. So the sixth way that Love and Science supports female physicians and professionals experiencing infertility is that we help you navigate the complexities of your emotions with our understanding and empathetic approach. So we know that the fertility journey is just riddled with complicated emotions. There can be anxiety, overwhelm, fear, disappointment, sadness, rage, frustration, and maybe some lighter emotions like joy and hopefulness. And, maybe you've just gotten good news and that's part of your story right now. But I think so much of it, I realized that when I looked at my schedule from my doctor hat, when I looked at my schedule from day to day, it was either new patients who I was just meeting for the very first time, but the rest of it was all people who had not gotten pregnant with whatever we were hoping to do, or people who had miscarriages. Because the people where, this process is somewhat efficient, they, thankfully, fortunately, are successful. They move on, they graduate. That's not the bulk of what we do in the fertility process. That's so happy when it happens that way, but it's really delving in the bad news. How do we take that bad news and process it? How do we take that news and decide what our next steps are going to be? And for every person, that's different, right? It depends on your emotional reserves. It depends on your financial resources, your insurance coverage. It depends on what your job might allow you to do, perhaps, and maybe sometimes even family support. So there's all sorts of different complexities that come up. And we realize that sometimes we don't just hold one emotion at a time. Usually we don't. It's at least 2, sometimes 8, sometimes 10, sometimes 15. And we really learn, how do you take those complicated emotions, feel them in your body, and then let them go? Because if we stay controlled by our emotions, what we resist persists, right? So if I'm resisting anxiety, if I'm resisting fear, that's only going to grow stronger as I put my forces against it. But if I can learn how to befriend those emotions, if I can feel those in my body, understand maybe where they're coming from, and learn to live with them as a part of me, right, but not all of me, then the rest of life just gets so much more tolerable, because not only can I move on, I can also have those emotions maybe in a conversation with another person and not completely freak out or shut down, right? And it just helps me understand myself better and have more compassion for myself, because I am a human having human experience. And I think when we can take that lens that We are just humans, earthlings, going through these steps of trying to achieve certain, outcomes, building your family, maybe for the first time, maybe subsequently. All of it takes some tools for processing. And that's what we offer at Love and Science, is the ability to feel the feelings, let them go, and move on. The 7th way that Love and Science supports female physicians and professionals experiencing fertility is that I help you discover authentic reasons for hope through evidence-based practices and personalized guidance. So authentic hope is one of my favorite things to talk about. I am not a toxic positivity person. I am not a pie in the sky Pollyanna person. That drives me bonkers. But I will tell you, when I can really hang my hat on something that is authentically hopeful for a person or a couple, say it's that somebody has successfully had a baby before, that's a really helpful thing to know. Say somebody has several euploid embryos in the freezer, that's a really optimistic sign. Say somebody is on the younger side, or maybe say they have, a diagnosis which is often relatively easy to treat, like polycystic ovarian syndrome. Not always, but sometimes, or maybe it's just mild male factor. And my sense is that with some mild lifestyle changes, that there might be a better outcome even within a few months. And so, there's all these reasons that I think we forget about the things that are going well, and we just look about, oh, well, I've done, 2 ovulation induction cycles and I'm still not pregnant and this is never going to happen. I like to take the 30,000 foot view and say, wait a second here. Sure, that is super frustrating and it can induce a sense of hopelessness. Absolutely. We honor that. We validate that. And at the same time, the chances of this eventually working are really high. And how can we stay in it mentally in order to focus on the things that are actually in our favor? We say, where your attention goes, the energy flows. And we can also maybe not like the things that are not so much in our favor, right? If there's certain things that maybe we've done some IVF cycles and we tend not to make good embryos, or there's some inefficiency, whatever it is, we don't have to completely shun those things. But I think if we can actually say, reasons for authentic hope, through an evidence-based approach, I think that really helps to give us some grounding and some science to stand on, to say it makes sense to keep going if that's the case, right? And it gives us a little bit more reserve in the tank to be able to keep going if that's the right thing for us, because we know that there's reasons that hopefully this will work with time. We don't know exactly when that is, but when we can focus on those things, it just helps us to stay the course and to keep the focus and to let that mental chatter, that negative self-doubt, that despair, that hopelessness that sometimes can overtake us, it just helps to keep it at bay when we can say, okay, well, with this many euploid embryos, this is my chance of success. All those things, those are really helpful to hang our hat on. Wonderful. So the 8th way that Love and Science supports female physicians and professionals experiencing infertility is we help separate fact from fiction. I will say with Dr. Google, there are so many ways that we can find information. It's like in seconds, I can Google any question and get any answer at my fingertips. And I think that's helpful and it's hurtful, because I think, like I said, they let me loose in my mid-30s to finally take care of patients independently. And when, even if you're like a cardiologist and you're trying to interpret the fertility data, it can be really overwhelming, because as fertility specialists, we are really far out on the medical tree, right? We've done OBGYN, we've done infertility, all those things. That is so far from the tree trunk of medicine. I think, a lot of my clients are physicians and they say, gosh, I went to medical school. I should be able to interpret this data. I should be able to direct my care better. And part of what I do is I say, let me take that burden from you, because this is my zone of genius. This is my wheelhouse. If I had a cardiology question, I would go to you as a cardiologist and say, help me figure out what medication to take. Help me figure out if I need a procedure. All those things that are on the cardiology branch of medicine. And this is why we all help each other, because we will all be patients at some point in time, and our family members will be patients and all those things. We're a community. But I think that it can get so muddled. We can find a paper to prove anything. And I think that there's biases in studies, and there's, conflicts of interest. Maybe the person who's selling something is the one who wrote the study. And so you have to look at that as well. So the nice thing about me being wearing two hats, like having a clinical practice of fertility medicine and also wearing my hat as a coach, is I read the papers regularly. We have journal clubs with the fellows and the residents. I go to the national conferences. And so it really keeps me up on the data, keeps me, asking the important questions and making sure that I have accountability so that I'm not like 5 to 10 years behind in the most recent literature. So let me help you separate fact from fiction. And then you can figure out your situation with my guidance, with the guidance of your REI, with accurate information and clarity. The 9th way that we help female physicians and professionals experiencing infertility at Love and Science is we help to heal triggers and past traumas that may be affecting your fertility journey. So we all know that we have like traumas. We have little T traumas, we have big T traumas, and we sometimes unexpectedly get triggered, whether it's by a loved one or a piece of bad news we might receive at the fertility clinic. It can be so darn stressful to just even go through life. Maybe it's somebody in their life announces a pregnancy. That can be incredibly distressing. Or say it's a holiday and we know we have to go to a Christmas gathering and our sister-in-law is there who just had a baby. Like all these things can just be like horrifyingly painful. And I am sensitive to that. I understand it. And as we go through the process at Love and Science of feeling feelings and healing triggers and setting boundaries and all of that, we process that trauma and release it so that you get to decide, do you go to that holiday gathering or do you not? Do you feel like you're healed enough that you can withstand that? Or do you feel like the best choice for you is to, stay at home and, figure out what to say to your family? Like all those things are so relevant and pertinent. And my goal is that you're not just going through life as this like trigger minefield, kind of like a ping pong ball, figuring out what piece of information is going to set you off on your next adventure that is completely uncontrolled by you, but that you are the wise leader. You get to decide what you do. You get to respond and not react when information comes. You get to pause and process things and gain those tools of emotional processing, of emotional resilience that maybe you haven't learned up until now, right? Like it's these are skills that take a long time to develop, and sometimes even a good therapist. I mean, I love therapy, don't get me wrong, I'm obsessed with it. But sometimes these things are not even taught in traditional therapy. And so that's the beauty of coaching, is that we can really heal triggers in real time and increase the resilience zone so that we're more grounded, we are coming home to ourselves and our bodies, and we can figure out what we need in real time and articulate that. Okay, so for the 10th way that Love and Science supports female physicians and professionals experiencing infertility, we help you build healthier relationships, both with yourself, because that's our primary relationship, and with your loved ones. And we help to foster connection and understanding. So I think there are so many ways, and I have a whole other podcast episode that I'm going to air soon on how the fertility journey can mess with our own relationship with ourselves. Last week's was on relationships with other people. But I think that when we are off kilter, when we are out of alignment, when we know that we have certain values and we just are not living them. I will tell you, when I'm hungry or exhausted or frustrated, when my gas tank is on empty, I am not the same person as when my gas tank is at least half full and I'm getting what I need, right? So I am more irritable. I am more impatient. If I'm at home and it's, with my family, maybe I raise my voice. I think that we express different parts of ourselves when our needs are getting met versus when they're not getting met. And over time, that can really start to wear on relationships. If this is, an intimate relationship, you're navigating this process with an intimate partner, the fertility journey can certainly drive a wedge in that relationship. It can affect physical intimacy, emotional intimacy, all the things, blame, shame, you name it. Go to episode 4 if you want more information about that. But like I said before, I really do believe that what coaching does is it helps. It's like the access point for how we can then up-level our whole experience of life. And although the fertility journey is a chapter of life, it can be a very long chapter. It can be several chapters in a row, and it can be incredibly painful. And some relationships truly don't survive it. I see it all in my practice. And as a divorced person, I can say this as well. Not all relationships survive. So if your intention is to have a healthy relationship with your partner, or maybe your best friend, maybe you've become estranged from your best friend or a sister or a parent, my goal is to give you the tools to be able to have those crucial conversations, to be able to sit with the discomfort in service of the ultimate growth of you and the relationship itself, and to figure out, is this a relationship that serves you, or is it not a relationship that serves you? If it does serve you, then let's give it 110%. Let's build the tools to help you express yourself and your needs and your desires and your values and all those things. But if it doesn't serve you, then I can give you the tools to let it go as well. So building healthy relationships, both with yourself and with the important people in your life, your inner circle, that's one of my zones of genius. I love to help people with that. And I love to hear the wins, because I think sometimes as we get comfortable with our own feelings, with our own desires, with our own uncertainty, then that's when we can be in more right relationship with other people, because they may have their own, situations in their brain. They may have their own uncertainty. They may have their own feelings. They may have their own perspectives on it. And so figuring out how to let other people be themselves, how to be fully ourselves, and where we can come together in that struggle and find some common ground, find some vulnerability, find some understanding. That's what I'm all about. So I will put these top 10 in the show notes just for the sake of summaries, because I love lists and I love summaries. I do have a touch of OCD. But I've had a lot of really interested people recently on through various channels, through social media, through personal contacts, who are like, hey, Love and Science is gaining traction. I hear your support groups are filling up on Friday nights, and your group coaching, your one-on-one coaching is going amazingly well. And people are graduating from their fertility specialists with, beautiful heartbeats where that never happened before. There's so much beautiful stuff going on. But what do you actually do at Love and Science? And so hopefully this episode clarified some of that. And if any of this piqued your interest and made you say, I bet my life would be a lot better if I could do, maybe skill number 6 or skill number 9 or whatever it is, book a call with me. It's 45 minutes usually. We go through what you've gone through. We go through what your goals are. We figure out what your blocks are, maybe even get into some of the limiting beliefs. And I'm here to empower. I'm here to support you. I'm here to help you go through this process with confidence and compassion. And I think that is sorely lacking due to so many reasons. I think the medical system is amazing in so many ways. And I think due to time constraints and other things, I think there just isn't quite the space for people that is necessary. So book a call with me, see how I can help. I love you, and I'll talk to you soon. Bye. Thank you for listening to the Love and Science podcast. I'm so glad you joined us today. If you found this conversation valuable, if you could please rate, review, and share this podcast with your trusted people, it would mean so much to me. If you want more tools to help you navigate the fertility journey, please book a discovery call with me today. The link is in the show notes. Please do not let infertility have the final word. I'm here to take the burden from you so that you can achieve your goal of building your family. In gratitude, this is Dr. Erica Bove. I'm rooting for you always.